Hello and welcome to the Golden Playbook. Today we are going to be recapping all of the Sunday games of Week 9 in the NFL, seeing what our fantasy football takeaways are, potential buy lows, sell highs as the trade deadline is coming up, both for the regular season and for fantasy football. Also some potential waiver wire pickups heading into Week 10. It is crunch time. Things are getting real. Matchups need to be won. Without further ado, let's hop into the first game. A 24-23 victory, Patriots over the Falcons. And the Patriots are quite the wagon at the moment. Drake May continues to put up pretty solid numbers, 259 yards and 2 touchdowns, adding 20 rushing yards in this one. And he just gives you that nice, safe rushing floor. And has been doing it with the arm in this one. A shock boom game out of Demario Douglas, 4 for 100 and a touchdown. Although I would not read too much into that. I don't think he will be a major pickup. His role has been very sporadic over the season, oftentimes only being targeted a couple times a game. So I would not be going screaming to the wire to pick up Demario Douglas. Good to see Stephon Diggs getting in the end zone, 3 for 38 and a touchdown, although his target share has not been there. Since that revenge game against Buffalo quite a few weeks back, the target share just has not been there. They are spreading the ball out too much. Ramondre Stevenson did not play in this game, so this is our first look as Travion Henderson at the lead back position, and 4 for 32 receiving, added 55 yards on the ground, but still gave up a touchdown to another running back, Terrell Jennings, in this one. They just don't like to use him at the goal line. Despite being in a position where he should have dominated touches in this game, still gave up 12 total touches to Terrell Jennings, who's really like a no-namer. So not great if you're Travion Henderson owners. I assume Ramondre will be back, if not this week, then next. So even in like a perfect prime position, he didn't really boom. Just not great to see for Travion. On the Falcons side of things, hello Drake London, 9 for 118 and 3 scores on 14 targets. Absolutely absurd. And this was really the first time he's had a boom game with Darnell Mooney in the lineup. Now, it's decently well known his splits with and without Darnell Mooney, but this was an absolute smash out of Drake London, who seems to make this offense run just so much smoother being on the outside and playing a lot out of the slot, which is good for fantasy value. But Darnell Mooney, obviously, like I said, took a hit with Drake London getting those 14 targets. Only 2 targets for Darnell Mooney. Not great to see. Bijan goes against that tough rushing defense for New England, who has been sneaky good all year. 46 yards on the ground, added 8 for 50 through the air. So he's getting it done. Not scoring a ton of touchdowns right now, so he's not really hitting his ceiling. But Bijan is still that guy. Only 2 carries for Tyler Algier. Just goes to show when the Falcons are down, Tyler Algier is not going to get much run. They need Bijan and his receiving ability in those spots. Next up, a 27-20 Chargers win over those Tennessee Titans. And Justin Herbert, just a nice, easy day at the office. 250 yards, 2 scores, and a pick, adding 57 yards and a rushing score. He has been adding that rushing value this season. It has been absolutely a beauty of a thing to see. The problem is, for the receiving standpoint, it is getting spread out amongst 4 main guys: Gadsden, McConkey, Johnston, and Keenan Allen. Rondé Gadsden is a very solid tight end start every week. He is, just doing the darn thing. Even in a game he didn't score, a solid 11.8 PPR fantasy points is very good out of the tight end. Quentin Johnston gets the touchdown in this one, so he comes home. It's just tough with so many mouths to feed in this receiving game to know who is going to get the bulk of the work, who's going to score the touchdowns, all that jazz. Very disappointing game for Kamani Vidal, who should have been the lead back, getting all the work in this one. 12 carries for 30 yards, obviously couldn't get it going. Ended up getting outrushed by Jarrett Patterson at the end of the day. Not great for Vidal, but his role is still pretty solid until Hampton returns. If Hampton returns, there is quite a bit of uncertainty around Hampton's injury. And on the Titans side, don't let the 20 points fool you. There was a punt return for a touchdown, a pick 6. The Titans did not score an offensive touchdown in this game, so don't get fooled. Cam Ward continuing to not get it done. This was another game without Calvin Ridley, but honestly, it doesn't really matter. Ayu Manor, 6 targets, whatever. Chamir Dike, who had been having a little buzz Coming into the last couple of weeks, only 1 catch for 5 yards. He is the guy who had the punt return touchdown. You would think they would start getting more creative plays for him on offense, but just did not happen. Pollard outrushed Spears in this game, but they just keep battling back and forth. Not a lot to say about the Titans offense. Just hoping that you don't really have much invested into their offense fantasy football-wise. It is a sad showing for Tennessee. And most definitely the game of the week, 47-42 victory, Bears over the Bengals. And this game was all sorts of fireworks. Caleb Williams, 280 yards, 3 touchdowns, added a receiving score, added 53 rushing yards, an absolutely boom game against a terrible, terrible Cincinnati Bengals defense. And you would think Bears put up 47. Rome Odunze had a huge day. You would be sadly mistaken. Down there at the bottom, 0 catches, 0 yards on 3 targets. Absolutely shut down in this one. And as crazy as it sounds, the Bengals' number 1 cornerback is the lone bright spot on their defense and has been shutting down the number 1 receivers all year, which led to the likes of DJ Moore, Olamide Zaccheaus, Colston Loveland getting lots of work in this one, and Rome Odunze really getting shut out. With that being said, Colston Loveland, 6 for 118 and 2 scores, including the game-winning touchdown. Cole Kmet did get a concussion in this game, so he is likely out next week, making Loveland a very solid option. Although I will say tight ends against Cincinnati are averaging over 18 points a game. So don't let this boom week take away from what we should expect moving forward. It will not always look like that. Another story of this game, DeAndre Swift was out and Kyle Monangai took over as a lead back and did so with a vengeance. 176 yards on 26 carries, added 3 receptions. The only thing he didn't do was get in the end zone, but heck, he had a fantastic day. I have to think they're going to make it more of an even split, even when Swift is healthy. Kyle Monangai earned that. I know it was against a bad Bengals defense, but he looked very, very good, as did many of these Bears pieces outside of Rome Odunze, unfortunately. On the Bengals side, Joe Flacco came into the game with an AC sprain in his shoulder. Didn't matter. He threw for 470 yards and 4 touchdowns. Absolutely unreal stuff. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase doing it all. 7 for 121 and 2 scores for T, 6 for 111 for Jamar. Would have loved to see, a touchdown for Jamar, but you're not going to complain. Samaje Perine left this game with an ankle injury, which led Chase Brown to being very, very involved. 37 yards on the ground, not great, but added 8 for 75 through the air. Check down Merchant in this game. Andre Yoshua scored a touchdown, Noah Fant. Pretty much unreal stuff, which just goes to show the Chicago Bears is another defense that we are attacking for fantasy purposes. It's always had the makeup of a shootout. I'm just glad that we actually got it to come to fruition. I will say this puts Chase Brown in a pretty good spot moving forward if Samaje Perine is to miss a bit of time. Obviously, what he did at the end of last season was pretty much league winning. Has been nowhere near the efficiency this year, but hopefully regaining that number 1 role can kind of carry you into fantasy playoffs. Next up, a 27-20 upset win. Steelers over the Colts, and this was the first game Daniel Jones looked like Daniel Jones of old. I think it was just a one-off. The Steelers defense came to play, and I don't have very many worries moving forward, but we'll start on the Pittsburgh side of things. 27 points scored, yet nobody really comes home fantasy-wise outside of Jaylen Warren, which is what I've been saying for weeks now. Jaylen Warren is the only real piece I want of this offense. You can convince me on DK Metcalf, but then he goes and does 2 catches for 6 yards and reminds me why Jaylen Warren is the only piece I want on this Pittsburgh team for fantasy purposes. The rest of it's all spread out. It's just not a high-powered offense, despite them winning this game. Jaylen Warren is the only piece I want. On the Colts side of things, just got shut down by a very good Steelers defense. At least they had a good performance in this one. 3 picks and 2 fumbles for Daniel Jones. Not great stuff. I will say Alec Pierce led the team with 13 targets, 6 for 115, and he has been very good in his downfield role. I think he's absolutely worth a roster spot in 12-team leagues. He can fill in on the bye weeks. Michael Pittman Jr., 9 for 115, continues to be the number 1 guy for Daniel Jones. Tyler Warren, quiet 5 for 26. This is 2 weeks in a row, a little bit quieter, which is a little bit shocking considering there was 50 pass attempts in this one, but just not getting it done. Josh Downs kind of took over, 6 for 57 and a touchdown in this one. So when all four of those guys are healthy, Pierce, Pittman Jr., Downs, and Warren, it's a little bit less to go around. For a lot of the season, either Pierce or Downs has been injured, which has kind of helped condense that pass attack a little bit. But when all four are healthy, it is not easy to spread the wealth to all of them. Tyler Warren being the one who got shut out in this one. And obviously a very quiet day for Jonathan Taylor. 45 yards, not worried about it. He's going to bounce back and do Jonathan Taylor things in the weeks to come. Next up, a 34-24 Niners win over the New York Giants. And Brock Purdy again did not play, leaving Mac Jones to do the thing, and he did the thing. Mostly Christian McCaffrey, as usual, 106 yards and touchdown on the ground, 5 for 67 and a touchdown through the air. Brian Robinson Jr. even got a score when he was spelling Christian McCaffrey, but Christian McCaffrey's role continues to be outrageous, as you can see, over 30 total touches in this one. Juwan Jennings finally got in the end zone, 4 for 51 and a score. You definitely like to see that. Quiet 4 for 32 out of George Kittle. Of course, they were winning most of this game, did not need to throw that much. And I've kind of noticed that George Kittle is not nearly the guy for Mac Jones as he is for Brock Purdy. Obviously, when Purdy is in the lineup, he is looking Kittle's way. Mac Jones doesn't have that, built up chemistry with him, so he has not been going his way. Really been leaning on Christian McCaffrey. So if you're a George Kittle owner, you're definitely hoping Brock Purdy comes back in the coming weeks. We have to see what he does during practice this week. On the other side, Jackson Dart is an absolute stud, man. He just continues to find ways to get it done. 191 yards, 2 scores, adding 56 and a score on the ground. Story of this one, obviously, first game without Cam Scattaboo. Tyrone Tracy had it all set up to be an absolute guy, yet he gets outrushed and outplayed by Devin Singletary in a much more 50-50 split than we were expecting. And Singletary's performance only showed why it should be a 50-50 split. Tyrone Tracy did not look good in this football game. I think he's definitely still a valuable fantasy asset and could have, multiple touchdown games moving forward. Just wasn't Tyrone Tracy's week. Through the air, Wandale, a PPR scam, 9 for 46. Love the target usage. He's going to continue to be, the check down guy. Theo Johnson gets in the end zone, 3 for 27 and a touchdown. You can do worse at tight end. Theo Johnson is a decent fill-in if you have guys like Tucker Kraft who tear their ACL that we'll get to later. Johnson is a good, solid fill-in. Darius Slayton, a nice 5 for 62. Nothing crazy. Jackson Dart is trying to put this team on his back, doing everything he can. They came up short in this one, but Dart is a fantastic fantasy asset himself. Next up, an absolute cagey affair. 18-15, Broncos over the Texans. Two of the top defenses in the league against two mediocre offenses, to say the least. Broncos end up coming away with the victory. A so-so performance out of Bo Nix, 173 and 2 scores, adding 36 yards on the ground. RJ Harvey continues to get it done somehow on limited snaps, 5 for 51 and a touchdown through the air. Only gets a couple of carries, but he finds ways to get it done. He keeps scoring touchdowns. I don't think it's a very sustainable way to score fantasy points, but he keeps doing it. So hats off to RJ Harvey. A quiet game for Cortland Sutton, although his one catch did go for a 30-yard touchdown, so kind of came home a little bit, but got shut down by Derek Stingley. Troy Franklin earned himself 10 targets, only having 4 for 27. He's just not that kind of player who can consistently put up good stats. Cortland Sutton definitely going to bounce back in an easier matchup in the coming weeks. J.K. Dobbins continues to lead this backfield, but he is a very touchdown-dependent back. 61 yards on 15 carries. Solid efficiency, but like I said, when he doesn't score a touchdown, he just doesn't come home fantasy-wise. On the Texans side of things, C.J. Stroud left this game with a concussion pretty early, leaving it to Davis Mills, who filled in fine. I think on a full week of practice, he's going to perform better, and against a defense that is a little less tough. Solid 7 for 75 out of Nico Collins, 6 for 77 out of Dalton Schultz. I think those are going to be the main two guys for Davis Mills next week. I imagine Stroud will have to be out. Couldn't get it done on the run game. Again, Broncos defense is very, very stifling. neither Chubb or Marks could get it going. Obviously, you're hoping for better matchups ahead. Outside of Collins and Schultz, it is an absolute muddled mess. Hutchinson, Kirk back, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel didn't even earn himself a target after playing so well. Just tough to see. It is very, very deep. And like I said, outside of Collins and Schultz, it's hard to predict who's going to get those work. You're not wanting to start any of those players. Next, we have a 27-24 Vikings win over the Detroit Lions. And I was expecting fireworks in this one as well. Halfway came home. I was expecting Detroit to be able to do a little bit more damage than 24 points. But the Vikings get it done. J.J. McCarthy's kind of a gamer. 12 yards and a score on the ground, 143 yards, 2 scores through the air. Justin Jefferson came home 6 for 47 and a touchdown, although just doesn't look as good with McCarthy at quarterback. Jordan Addison 2 for 48, obviously doesn't get it done. Aaron Jones, after looking very, very good, did injure his shoulder in this game, so that'll be something to keep an eye on. Could be Jordan Mason time again, although Jordan Mason hasn't looked very good the last few weeks. Hopefully it is minor for Aaron Jones and he is back within the next week or two. Lions side of things, they could not get it going on the ground. Both Montgomery and Gibbs under 4 yards of carry. This was definitely one of Gibbs' worst games of his career. Obviously, just didn't get the opportunities, wasn't efficient when he got them. He got stymied in this game. Solid game out of Laporta, 6 for 97 and a score. Amon-Ra's, every week he's going to be doing the thing. He's just like Puka Nacua. He's not going to come into a game and not get utilized. 9 for 97. Jameson Williams, a shockingly good game, 4 for 66 and a touchdown. He looked good. He's just not getting the target share that you would want as a Jameson Williams owner. I expect a major Gibbs bounce back in the coming weeks. Goff honestly didn't play that bad. He was just getting pressured all day, 5 sacks, and took a lot of QB hits. So I expect good things out of this Lions offense in the coming weeks. Next up, a 16-13 Panthers win over the Packers in a definitely shocking game. And the story of this one, Rico Dowdle, reports before the game was that he was going to be, resume as lead back despite Chuba being healthy. And those reports were surprisingly true. 130 yards and 2 touchdowns on 25 carries to Chuba Hubbard's 5 carries. Rico Dowdle is absolutely unreal. They're going to continue to give him this usage because every time he does this, they win football games. But with that said, in Bryce Young's first game back, he did not look good. As the numbers indicate, just above 50% completion percentage, 102 yards and a pick, which doesn't leave a lot of room for your receiving options, unfortunately. 4 for 46 out of Tedoroa McMillan on 6 targets. But when those are the quarterback's numbers, you're just not going to come home at the end of the day. This game was dominated by Rico Dowdle. Still have faith in Tet moving forward. It's just, can Bryce Young get it done? But Rico Dowdle is going to be a league winner down the stretch. On the Packers side of things, Josh Jacobs slowly getting healthier. 87 yards on 17 carries and a score, adding 4 receptions. Romeo Doubs leading the squad, 7 for 91 on 10 targets. And outside of Romeo Doubs, it is very, very hard to predict who is going to be getting those ancillary targets. Obviously, Christian Watson is back. Matthew Golden hardly utilized. And if you just see the number of players with targets in this game, it is just hard to predict. I will say Tucker Kraft, like I mentioned earlier, did tear his ACL in this game. So that is one less major threat in the offense. Who is going to assume his targets? Obviously, Luke Musgrave is the backup tight end. He's probably rosterable. He's just nowhere near the talent Tucker Kraft is. But outside of Romeo Doubs, it is very, very hard to predict. I'd say Matthew Golden is droppable at this point. He's just not getting a clear role, clear usage that you'd expect out of a first-round rookie. And another game that was sneaky close to game of the week, 30-29, Jags over the Raiders in an overtime thriller. Story of this one is Brock Bowers, but we'll get to him in a minute. We'll start on this Jacksonville side of things. Coming out of the bye, we weren't for sure if Bashal Tutin was going to take over more of a role. Coming out of the bye, we didn't know if the rookie Bashal Tutin was going to get more of a role in this running game, but Travis Etienne Jr. continued to dominate the backfield. 22 carries, 84 yards. I will say Tutin did get the goal line carry, got the touchdown. So that is something to look at. Really kills Travis Etienne's value, although he made up for it in this one with 5 for 31 in the passing game. If Tutin's going to steal his touchdowns, that is not a great look. Travis Hunter out of this game. He is on IR. Brian Thomas Jr. ended up injuring his ankle. Probably a high ankle sprain, will be out a few weeks. That leaves Parker Washington, who was 8 for 90 on 9 targets and has proven to be one of Trevor Lawrence's favorite targets, even when everyone is healthy. But now he is the number one option. He is an absolute must pick up if he is not already owned in your league. He's going to be a very solid wide receiver for the next coming weeks with guys injured. He's going to be the number one threat. He's going to come into games with a 10, 12-point floor. He is definitely a solid pickup at this point. And outside of that, we have to see who steps up. Brenton Strange is hopefully back soon off the IR, but we have to see which of these other receivers. Is it Diami Brown? Is it one of these tight ends? Who knows? But for sure is that Parker Washington is a must pick up if not already owned in your league. And I also believe that now the running backs are going to get more involved. Both Etienne Jr. and Tutin should have an uptick in usage. On the Raiders side, like I said, Brock Bowers, welcome back. 12 for 127 and 3 touchdowns. Unreal stuff. Makes you feel like if he was healthy the whole season, he would have absolutely paid up his second round value. Ashton Genty also comes home thanks to his receiving work. 5 for 47 and a touchdown, adding 42 yards on the ground. Absolutely love to see that he's getting that receiving work. Without it, he would just be, a J.K. Dobbins type, but he is getting that vital work. Trey Tucker, 3 for 38. Jacoby Myers, 4 for 23. We'll have to see if Jacoby Myers gets moved at the trade deadline. There's definite talks of that, and he just does not have the same role that he had last year, unfortunately. Geno's first solid game, 284 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a pick. Still didn't look like the years past Seahawks Geno, where he was just like mistake-free football. That O-line is bad, but Geno just doesn't quite look the same, although this was easily his best game up to date. Next, a 34-10 Rams win over the Saints in Tyler Shuck's first start. The Rams were just utter domination from the onset. Matthew Stafford, looking like an MVP candidate, 281 yards and 4 scores. Of course, Puka, 7 for 95 and a touchdown. Did get banged up in this one, so we'll have to check practice reports to see if he is good to go. Devontae Adams, 5 for 60 and 2 touchdowns. And as we know, it is pretty much the two-headed monster of those. No one else in the receiving game really came home. They're doing a tight end by committee thing. Ferguson, Davis Allen, Tyler Higbee, all getting targets and usage. If that was all combined, that would be a very solid tight end option. But unfortunately, they are doing it by committee on the ground. Kyron Williams, 25 for 114 and a touchdown. Absolutely, love to see that workhorse mentality. Even with that, Blake Corum got 13 carries for 58 yards. Just goes to show Kyron Williams can still get it done with Blake Corum taking some of those carries. On the Saints side, it is just looking so sad. I don't know why they benched Spencer Rattler. I feel like he gave them a better chance of winning. But when you draft a guy that early in Shook, he's going to get in at some point. Rashid Shaheed led the squad in 9 targets, 5 for 68. This could be something to look at. Shaheed might be Shook's guy. Who knows? Chris Olave, a quiet 3 for 57. Juwan Johnson got a score. Alvin Kamara looking really, really bad. He is, I wouldn't say droppable, but he's getting closer and closer by the game. Just not looking good. Just the Saints offense is just bad all around. It is just so gloom and doom for New Orleans at this point. And finally, the game of the week, at least heading into the week, a 28-21 Bills win over the Chiefs. And Josh Allen absolutely dominated this game. 273 yards and a touchdown, adding 2 rushing scores. James Cook had a solid day on the ground, 114 yards and 27 carries. Although the team had 3 rushing scores and none of them were him, which is obviously bad luck. Usually James Cook is a touchdown guy. Didn't happen in this one, so that's definitely a bummer. A very nice Dalton Kincaid game, 6 for 101 and a touchdown, continues to get it done. And from a receiver standpoint, Khalil Shakir is really the only valuable guy. 7 for 43 on 8 targets. Outside of that, you can see how many guys are getting 1 to 2 targets. Nobody is just getting enough work to really produce enough fantasy value. On the Chiefs side, a really, really bad game from Patrick Mahomes. We haven't seen this in a long time. 15 for 34, 250 yards and a pick. Obviously, Rashee Rice continues to do his thing, 4 for 80 and added a rushing score. This was the first game without Isaiah Pacheco, 49 yards and a rushing touchdown. They do have the bye next week, so I assume Pacheco will be back. If not, Kareem Hunt is a very solid RB2 option. Xavier Worthy continues to not get it done while Rashee Rice has been back. 3 for 23 through the air. I really don't think he is a startable piece with Rashee Rice healthy. Just hasn't been able to get it done in conjunction with Rashee Rice. Travis Kelce, a solid 4 for 66. Continues to be a decent tight end option week in and week out. You're really not sitting Travis Kelce. Chiefs will absolutely bounce back. This offense is too good not to. Mahomes, will probably be on a vengeance tour starting week 11. And this all led down to Sunday night where my Seattle Seahawks put down a 38-14 absolute beatdown on the Washington Commanders. Sam Darnold looking like an MVP candidate in his own right. 330 yards, 4 touchdowns. Absolutely tremendous stuff. JSN continuing to be one of the best receivers in the NFL. 8 for 129 in this game. This was the first game without Cooper Kupp, and Torrey Horton assumed that wide receiver 2 role very nicely. 4 for 48 and 2 touchdowns. And they played a lot of 2 tight end sets in this one with AJ Barner and Elijah Arroyo. They're definitely trying to get those guys on the field as much as possible. Both guys scored a touchdown. Just a nice day overall on the Seahawks side. Outside of the running backs, obviously Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet, both very quiet days. Neither got a touchdown. And it's just going to continue to be that split. And you're just not feeling good about starting either Hawks back. On the Commanders side, the unfortunate injury news of Jaden Daniels, dislocated elbow. Very likely out for the season. It is going to be the Mariota show moving forward. And just a bummer for this Washington team. He's really the heart and soul of it. And it's a big hit to all of the fantasy options here. Debo, 5 for 41, but he gets a hit with Mariota. Ertz, 4 for 46, but he gets a hit with Mariota. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt hasn't been able to get it going on the ground. He's losing receiving work to Jeremy McNichols, losing goal line work to Chris Rodriguez. Just not a great option right now. Terry McLaurin is probably going to be out for a few more weeks. This Washington Commanders team is in shambles. Not a lot of these pieces are worth much fantasy-wise moving forward, unfortunately. And it all led down to Monday Night Football, a 27-17 Cardinals victory over the Cowboys. And I'll tell you what, the Cardinals are going to have a real tough decision once Kyler Murray is healthy, or if he already is healthy, because Jacoby Brissett is absolutely playing fantastic. This offense looks so much better when he is in there at quarterback compared to when Kyler is in there. It's just more smooth, more consistent, more fluid. And the pass catchers really, really appreciate Jacoby Brissett. Marv Harrison, 7 for 96 and a touchdown. Trey McBride, 5 for 55 and a touchdown. These fantasy assets are thriving under Jacoby Brissett. We're going to have to see if Kyler Murray gets back in the coming weeks. You hope not if you are a Marv and Trey McBride owner, but Kyler Murray makes the big dollars. I'm sure he will get back in there at some point. On the ground, we expected Bam Knight to be the lead back. Didn't turn out to be so. Amari DiMercato was back from the ankle injury, and he led the team 79 yards on 14 carries. They're very clearly in a, ride the hot hand situation until Trey Benson gets back, which he is eligible to do so next week. We'll see how he's feeling, but it is going to be very hard to pinpoint the player in the backfield that is going to get the hot hand. But so long as Brissett is quarterbacking, you're going to want to start Marv Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride, no doubt about it. On the Cowboys side of things, definitely a struggling night for them. Dak, 250 yards, a touchdown on pick, and he was getting pressured a lot in this game. Took 5 sacks, and he just didn't have a ton of time to throw. The main 2 guys, Lamb and Pickens went 7 for 85 and 6 for 79. So they're continuing to do their thing. That defense is so bad that they're going to get lots of pass attempts, lots of targets every game. They are shoo-ins in your starting lineup. Jake Ferguson, a fine 5 for 50. Did have a fumble in this game. His day could have been definitely better. But Dallas's defense is just so bad that if they don't play a perfect game on offense, they're not going to win many football games. And this one happened to be far from perfect. Javonte Williams, a solid 83 yards on 15 carries. Didn't get in the end zone, unfortunately, so doesn't really come home for fantasy purposes. But you're continuing to roll out these passing options for Dallas just because the game script really, really favors their passing attack. And yeah, Cowboys are looking really bad. They could use a guy like Micah Parsons on that defense in a bad, bad way. Guess we'll never know. Trade deadline's coming up. We'll see what happens around the league. But that is going to do it for our Tuesday episode. We are already through week 9. Week 10 is upon us. We are getting down to the nitty gritty. If you like this long form recap content, make sure you smash that subscribe button. Really help grow the channel. While you're down there, smash that like button and comment down below your hottest take from week 9 or perhaps a sweet fantasy victory. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate the support. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.